Hey there. Yes, you. I hear you've been designated as the new data manager for your local education agency. Looks like you have a lot of studying to do in order to understand your new role. Well, I'm here to help you today in trying to navigate this new role. Would you like that? Along with this video, USB has developed a guidebook, which we will reference throughout this video. The guidebook will answer most of your questions and provides a more in-depth look at your role as a data manager. A data manager is first and foremost the link between their LEA and the Utah State Board of Education. It's important for the state board to communicate with LEAs in order to update them on policies and procedures when laws are either created or revised. Under federal and state law, there are basically 3 activities you have to do to be compliant. You have to create certain policies. You have to provide notice at the beginning of the year, and you have to follow through on your policies throughout the year. Got a pen and paper? Great. Let's go over each one by one. There are 2 main policies that you may be in charge of creating, revising, or implementing: a data governance plan and a PPRA policy. The main policy you need to have under the Student Data Protection Act is a data governance plan. This is a comprehensive policy that should include the following items. Since this requirement came into existence in 2016, many of you already have this plan in place. It's actually required that you publicly post this on your LEA's website. But we recommend that you review it and all your policies frequently, ideally once a year, to make sure nothing is out of date. And if you're a new school, or you just want a fresh start, there is a model data governance plan available that covers all the basics that you need. For more information on developing data governance plans, see this chapter of the guidebook. One other thing is that your governance plan will overlap with the job responsibilities of 2 other individuals in your LEA. One is the records officer, who will oversee your records management program, including requests for expungement. The other is the information security officer, who will ensure that you're following the CIS controls and handle your data breach response process. It's possible that one or both of these have been assigned to you, but if they haven't, you're going to want to get to know these individuals to make sure that you're all working together to follow the plan. The other policy you're required to have comes from the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, or PPRA. Under this, you are required to work with parents to create policies concerning student privacy, parents' access to information, and administration of certain physical examinations and surveys to minors. Since PPRA has been around since the 1970s, it's possible you already have some of these policies in place. If this is news to you, or you'd just like to update your policies, the Privacy Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC, has several resources you could refer to. For more information on PPRA, see this chapter of the guidebook. Let's briefly discuss notices. There are 6 notices you should provide parents annually under federal and state law: annual FERPA notice, Military Recruiter Institution of Higher Education notice, school transfer notice, directory information, collection notice, and survey notice. For the most part, you just need to make sure these notices are available someplace official to parents, such as in a parent's handbook or a section of your website. The first is the annual FERPA notice. This needs to inform parents of their rights under FERPA and the procedures for exercising those rights. It also needs to specify the criteria for sharing data with a school official and what constitutes a legitimate educational interest. For this notice, check and see first if you already have one. Since FERPA has been around for a while, many schools already do. If you don't have an annual notice currently, the U.S. Department of Education has an excellent model document you could use to start. Military Recruiter Institution of Higher Education notice. LEAs should notify parents of the option that they have to make a written request to not release their student's name, address, and telephone number for the purposes of military recruiting. This also applies to recruiting for institutions of higher education. This notice is sometimes included as a part of the annual FERPA notice. School transfer notice. Schools should give annual notice to parents that they will forward education records to other schools or institutions in which the student seeks or intends to enroll in. This notice is also sometimes included as a part of the annual FERPA notice. The next notice you need is for directory information. If you're going to share directory information, you will have to notify parents of your policy and give them enough time to choose to opt out. Again, check and see if you already have a policy. If you need a new one, the US Department of Education has model language you can use. You can also find more details in this chapter of the guidebook, as well as a video on our YouTube page, linked below. The next notice is the collection notice. The Student Data Protection Act requires you to notify parents each year of the data you're planning on collecting on students and how you're going to keep it secure. USBA has created a model document that lists all the information we know you're going to collect based on the information you send to the state through the Utah Transcript and Record Exchange, or UTREX for short. You should start with this and then add any other elements you're collecting that don't get submitted to UTREX. You can find more details about collecting data in this chapter of the guidebook. PPRA requires that you provide notice to parents annually of all the surveys you'll be giving that touch upon these 8 sensitive topics. Unlike the other notices, this has to be direct, meaning that it can't be buried somewhere on the website. It has to be given by hand, mail, or email. Also note that in most cases, you're going to have to get parental consent before administering these surveys. Utah law further specifies that these notices must be given with at least 2 weeks' notice. So if you're planning surveys at the beginning of the year, you may have to provide notice before the school year begins. After developing policies and providing notice, you need to follow through with your policies throughout the year. Specifically, this means training, transparency, and how you disclose student data. The first one of these is holding an annual training for all educators and staff who will have access to student records. This training minimally needs to cover federal and state privacy laws. USB and PTAC have created several materials you could use to meet this requirement, some of which are linked in the description below. Or at your request, we would be happy to provide in-person trainings for your LEA. For more ideas on training, see this chapter of the guidebook. The Student Data Protection Act requires that LEAs be more transparent when sharing student PII. The main transparency requirement in the Student Data Protection Act is maintaining a metadata dictionary. This is a place where the public can look up the data you're sharing and with whom. USBA has created a website where you can put all of this information located in the Data Gateway. As the year goes on, make sure that your metadata dictionary entries are up to date. For more information and your current obligations, see this chapter in the guidebook. Probably the biggest part of your job is going to be making sure that all disclosures of student data follow the requirements of FERPA to either have written parental consent or follow a FERPA exception. So we recommend getting to know what is allowed and what isn't. USBA has produced a series of videos that introduce all of the FERPA exceptions, which are located on our YouTube page. A link can be found in the description of this video. And more detail can be found in this chapter of the guidebook. Looks like you're still having a problem understanding what FERPA exceptions you're using when you're sharing student data. After viewing all of the resources, if you're still not sure which FERPA exceptions you're using, go ahead and give us a call or send us an email. We're always more than happy to provide guidance. So there you have it. We hope this video has been informative and helpful. This video only covers the basics of your job responsibilities. For further direction, please refer to the Data Privacy Guidebook. And if you still need help, contact the Utah State Board of Education Student Data Privacy Department. Operators are standing by to take your call. For a one-page checklist on all of these responsibilities, click the link in the description or visit schools.utah.gov/student-data-privacy. For information on student data privacy, contact USB's Student Data Privacy Team at 801-538-7618. That's 801-538-7618. Operators are standing by.